Okay, we will call this agenda priorities meeting to order for September the 15th. It's 3 p.m. and I'd ask Councillor Dunham to please read the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. We're grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dunham. Moving into 2.1, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor and Council, well over a week ago, Councillor Heistad inquired to place on the agenda for council consideration for today's meeting, 42nd Street and Highway 54 intersection, and another item, electric bikes and scooters. My apologies to Councillor Heistad and to Council for not having them on the agenda today, but okay, that was the request.
Thank you. Could we please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda as amended, please? Councillor Wing.
Yes, Mayor Barclay, I'll make that a motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. All right, we'll move into 3.1 with CAO Becker.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. Hello, Council. This report is quite beefy. We just want to make sure Council keeps in the loop on different legislative adjustment changes. We are still waiting for regulations to come and support some of these changes, and as we get the regulations, we'll come in to start looking at policy framework required or procedures to making sure we're compliant with the legislation. As you can see within the report, AB Munities continues on with their advocacy in responding to some of the changes. More specifically to the report highlights recent provincial legislative changes to include bills 18, 20, 49, 50, and the new Access to Information Act and Protection of Privacy Act, which you'll see references in your in-camera components and not FOIP. So you see these other relations to these acts. The report highlights the most significant amendments to the MGA, Local Authorities Election Act, and related statutes. But really, it's going to put it to you, Council, if there's any specific questions in combing through the report. As mentioned, expecting a little bit more expectations outlined in regulation to come in the next months, I would say. But we can sort of take a tiptoe through the report or the legislation. And if there's anything of item you would wish to discuss further, maybe we could do it that way.
Okay, thank you, CEO Becker. So if you've had time to go through this, does anybody have any questions about any of the bills that have been outlined and potential changes to the legislation? Councillor Dunham.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. After going through it, really the one that stood out the most for me was code of conduct. Where do we stand now within any sort of disciplinary, or if a council member passes that line, is it an invisible line now? Like, how do we know? I mean, we do know, or you would think one would know proper etiquette, but what happens when somebody steps over that now? Well, where do we go with that, and what sort of disciplinary action potentially could there be?
Councillor Dunham's question is, there's not a lot of meat with that, Councillor Dunham. I expect we'll hear more through some of our orientation training with new council. Right now, council repealed the code of conduct bylaw, so there's really nothing further from our own internal guidelines. There's also references about not having to go to court action for discipline or to remove a councillor. So there's something in there I expect through regulation. It'll highlight how this procedure goes, but right now I really stuck on giving you a good solid response, but more to be learned in this area for sure.
Thank you. Does anybody else have a question? If not, we'll just have a motion, please, to accept the report as information. Councillor Dunham.
Mayor Barclay will make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move on to 3.2 with Director Jenkins and the facade and storefront improvement.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So we're looking to council for an opportunity to review and update the Facade and Storefront Improvement Grant Program policy. So this program supports businesses in the community to upgrade their exteriors. It's been in place since 2012. And the program provides matching funding up to $5,000 for work that improves appearance and character of commercial properties. So essentially, the intent of the policy is remaining the same. The format has been updated, as well as a few key considerations for council. So we're looking to improve clarity on the explanation of eligible properties, to include those where commercial or institutional activities take place, not necessarily specific to a commercial zoning. The council members that are on MPC will recall a recent application where this situation happened, where we did have a daycare that sits on a property that's zoned for residential use. So just that eligibility criteria, as opposed to it being tied to zoning, to being tied to the current use of the property. We're looking to propose an increase from $5,000 to up to $7,500 per project. All the funding through this program is matching funding, but just with the costs of the upgrades that people are looking at, doing that increase, and as well to consider establishing the CAO or designate as the approving authority as opposed to MPC. So the proposed changes are intended to make the program more accessible and streamlined for applicants. In your package, there's a comparison of a number of other Alberta municipalities that offer similar programs, outlines sort of the dollar amounts, the approving authorities that those municipalities utilize. So again, anticipated outcome is we'll be looking for feedback today from council, and then to potentially come back as early as next week with a finalized policy for consideration. So right now on the financial side, we've allocated $10,000 annually through the operating budget since the program started in 2012. We would likely be looking to propose an increase up to probably $15,000 for council consideration in the 2026 budget, just to allow some of those larger projects and encourage businesses to take those on. Just for reference, since the program started in 2012, 29 businesses have utilized the program, and $113,000 has been invested in our commercial spaces. So yeah, just looking for some feedback and thoughts on the proposed changes to the policy.
Okay, thank you, Director Jenkins. Questions, Councillor Heistad?
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. Director Jenkins, I thought this was really well done. I think it's a huge improvement, and even giving the data from 2012 was really helpful, because I can remember when this program came in then. And giving CO Becker the authority to sign off and to go to review it makes it much more nimble than going back to the MPC, right? So I think this is an improvement. I think this is really good for our community, and having the numbers from 2012 to now really shows the commitment from the business community. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay, and through to Director Jenkins. In thinking back to some of the work and the conversations that we had when we did the new municipal development plan, we talked in those at that time around laneway development for businesses, so potentially beautification of laneways, putting some lights. And so my question is, if a business has an entrance to their place of business from a laneway, would they be able to apply for or qualify for the beautification?
I will have to look at that. I know we have expanded the language a little bit around landscaping and that, because we have had those types of applications come forward, and the ones we have funded have been quite successful.
Yeah.
But I can do a quick
Thank you.
review and address that.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bates.
Yeah, just hearing that question and thinking about it, it would seem to me, I would hate to see funds run out for someone else who was trying to improve the front when somebody maybe used them for the back, unless unless that whole lane is something like, to just improve the look of one thing in a back lane doesn't really seem to fit the intent to me. To me, the intent is to improve the facades of the entire front of the street, but that's just a comment. Thank you.
Councillor Wing can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it would be businesses that are utilizing that rear access as a primary access, the way the gift loft, you used to be able to come into the back, not just a
Yeah, no,
sort of
I'm
service.
understanding that they're using it. I'm just, if you use that example, I prefer to see them dress up the front along with the rest of the entire street versus if the back is, if they had the only attractive back entrance, I don't think that does a lot for our town. I'd rather, if it came down to priorities, I guess is what I'm saying, I'd rather see the priority be the fronts. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I guess this is potentially just my not reading enough into it, but I was always under the assumption that it was a Main Street program in downtown, but I see now that it wasn't. Of those 29 previous ones, do you sort of just roughly know how many and where they were located? Was it kind of all?
They were all over. When I went through, A&W's accessed it, 4-Lane Ford has accessed it. I'm trying to think further out that way. But yes, businesses throughout the commercial area have accessed.
That's good to see. That
yeah.
opens it up to everyone. So, but as far as the rest of it, increasing it to 7,500, obviously costs just keep going up and up and up. So to increase it, I think is a really good thing. But I would also agree with Councillor Bates that I think forward-facing
Priority.
to me should take precedence over potentially back lane stuff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Eastgate Mall.
Yeah,
They
just-
accessed it recently,
And
Eastgate Mall, to do the exterior.
I think both malls accessed
both
it in a
malls.
small way,
Yeah.
of course, because that's a
Yeah,
big
Those were
expense.
$500,000 projects and they got
Yeah.
their 5,000, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Still.
Yeah. Councillor Heistad.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Just going back to the laneway, and this is where I think I just want to ask Councillor Wing as to the laneway, because I remember when we had our 3 years of the downtown core was shut off and we used the laneways, and actually, I think it was Studio Arts did a really good job. And there was and Gift Loft where everybody was using the lanes, and it actually it wasn't everybody was kind of complaining, that's what I recall, but they made it look good. And I think when Councillor Wing's talking about laneways or anything like that, I think of different cities I've gone to or courtyards and lane and back areas that may enhance that business or maybe another way to get into that business. So Councillor Wing, were you was that your idea from that? Because that's where I was assuming that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I was just going back to the conversations we had when we were doing the municipal development plan, talking about, complete areas of back lanes, laneways that could be accessed. And if that was a desire, if businesses started to get together around what that would look like, if you think about 50th and 50th, but the back alley on the south side that's heading west, so you've got our vacant lot, then there's the parking lot, and if you head west, there's a few open areas as well as another parking lot. So that's just one example that we had discussed is, if you were developing both sides of the street, those could be pedestrian-friendly areas, whatever. Certainly it's part of a bigger plan. Certainly it's something that, would have to come through a different kind of work. I just wondered whether this would be something that they would be able to apply for or whatever. But anyway, just keep it on our radar that definitely the conversation for that kind of development has been happening. And there's pictures of it in the MDP.
Thanks.
Director Jenkins, the 7,500, did that number come about because you're seeing the value of the applications that have come in? And I know there was a couple of big projects like the malls, the 2 malls would have been.
Yes, we just, continuing to see the values of those applications increase. And this year has actually been a little bit of an anomaly. We've had quite a few applications this year. In the previous years, applications had kind of dropped off. But we know like a $10,000 project isn't a very big project if you're looking at some kind of improvement, even if you're looking at signage or those types of things. And our development officer's been working on some of our properties to get their signage and things like that improved, so.
Well, and the signage, I was talking to a new business the other day, you know, to put a storefront sign on, it was minimum $4,000, so it's not cheap. But the other question I have is around the glass, the windows, the clear glass. In the second bullet point, improving the view of the interior of shops or restaurant using clear glass. So can you explain that to me? Because I know some people, they have the lettering on the window, which looks good too.
So, and that's from the current policy, and we can adjust language a little bit. The idea by maintaining glass, maintaining that sort of open display type of frontages is more conducive to that downtown sort of window shopping, walking around that you're able to see. We do have some businesses that either have to have their fronts, like cannabis stores and the vape shops have to be, you know, you're not able to see the products in. There certainly have been improvements in glass decaling and those types of things in recent years as well.
I just don't want us to lose sight that there's going to be businesses that want to do that glass decaling. And I know driving down through downtown today, the new daycare downtown now has their glass all
decorated or
deckled.
Deckled, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there's no seeing inside that facility. So just to make sure that they're not being excluded, that type of business. So, are there any other questions? If not, I'll please have someone make a motion that we accept this report as information. Councillor Heistad.
I'll make a motion that we accept this report as information.
All right, thank you. Anything further? No? All in favor? Okay, carried. And then we will move into 3.3 with Central Alberta First with Director Jenkins.
Okay, so we wanted to take another opportunity to discuss with council the Central Alberta First initiative while it was sort of fresh in everyone's minds from last week. So again, we're requesting council to consider continued support for participation in the Central Alberta First Partnership and commit to the updated MOU to maintain and enhance our role in regional economic development. Our perspective is that the partnership offers measurable benefits to Innisfail by facilitating those regional connections, enhancing local ECDEV, and providing the opportunity to engage with key stakeholders and access various funding opportunities. So as council's aware, there's a number of partners, including our municipal neighbors, as well as Red Deer Polytechnic and Olds College. So some of the benefits that participation brings in our mind is local access to regional resources and intelligence. So the group operates to work together to collect and analyze data. So the Brood process is an example of that, working to collect and establish sort of consistent data across the board, and if we continue to do that process at regular intervals, that we'll have measurable data that can be compared over time, as well as that access to the regional business support networks. So our local businesses being able to directly access those services. As well, having a stronger voice at the leadership level for the region. So again, it is kind of a ticket to sit at the table, to have the opportunity on a regular basis to meet with our key partners in the region. You know, for me particularly, those post-secondary education institutes, so Old College and RDP, monthly having interactions with those individuals. Most of their initiatives are always going to be at a regional level as opposed to directly with one individual municipality. Another big thing is the shared cost and increased leverage. So looking at processes or projects, even if it's like Brood and you're hiring a consultant, being able to hire that consultant to provide services to a number of municipalities as opposed to each one of us going to access those services. In addition, when we're applying for external funding, just about every grant wants to see some sort of regional aspect on it. So the ability to utilize this partnership to achieve that regional aspect of grant applications, as well as that discussion and input. Council will remember last fall we were talking about a Prairies Can grant application for a local project, and sort of when we got to that point that they really wanted to see how those regional players were coming to the table, I feel like through a vehicle like Central Alberta First, we would have been better situated to be able to take that project to the table and ask if they would support us, even if it's not in a monetary way, that you're able to say we have all of these people on board with us. And we can talk about it in a second, but that's what's occurring with the current workforce and industry analysis project that RDP is working on, that they've accessed external funding, but that ability to connect or I don't know, associate themselves with Central Alberta First allows them to leverage the regional component of their grant application. So that kind of gets into the next section, but again, with the projects that have currently been identified by the group, sort of coming out of the Brood strategy, the first one being the AI Business Conference. Again, it's a Central Alberta First project, but it's fully funded. It's not taking any money out of the group. It's sort of branded and housed as an action from the project. The workforce and industry analysis, my understanding is Red Deer Polytechnic was already essentially working on this project, but the ability to align it with the Central Alberta First group and that regional aspect is what's of value to them. The Trade Accelerator Program, again, is still in the works. Nehill County is the lead on that project. Again, it's anticipated that there's not large cost to it, but again, they have the regional audience and folks to participate to make sure that has enough interest in participants. The next two projects there, the supply chain competitiveness strategy and the entrepreneur strategy. So those are projects that are in development. Essentially, they were identified through the Brood process as actions that should be taken, and individuals from the group have signed up to be the leads for those projects. So they will then work on developing project scope and if there is budget ask, and then that's what comes back to that Central Alberta First Committee. Next one, sort of sustainable, measurable economic development. So the group uses a 3-year planning and measurement cycle to help monitor progress and revisit. So that Brood process, setting up on a regular schedule that we're going back every 2 to 3 years to do that survey to be able to identify if we're making progress in the areas that have been identified and if the same things are persisting. Again, the committee's going to meet, or the committee meets monthly, reviews projects and project progress. Members are encouraged to take on lead roles for identified or new projects that support those 8 themes that are identified in the strategy. And then promoting and educating stakeholders on the work and activities of the group. So again, it gives our businesses access to resources and our admin access to intelligence with our other communities, and to have a voice to participate in some of those larger regional projects. So based on the conversation today, we are hoping for further feedback and conversation and to potentially come back again to request formal support from council. Again, the participation And the initiatives is primarily the work of our ECDev officer. I think it's another one of these regional bodies that you kind of get what you give to them, that if you make full use and show up and, you know, bring ideas forward and participate as much as you can, you will get more out of the activity. But again, working with internal resources, we're able to determine capacity to take on various initiatives. The MOU outlines the annual $10,000 contribution from member organizations, which is then pooled with the other parties to work towards various project objectives. We would be looking for, the 2025 allocation would be funded through available operating budget in this year's budget, and then would be identified as in future years' operating budgets. We did have a question from councillors last week about the business contribution to the monetary side. And long-term, that would be the goal, that there's enough of a regional sort of swell of activity that businesses do see that value. But until that time, it definitely is a government-led process. So yeah, recognizing that it's a bit muddy and fuzzy at this point, as anything that involves us working together with lots of partners. But we do see more value than risk for the monetary outlay and for the opportunity to participate and see what the opportunities the group does provide. So C.A. Becker, I'm not sure if you want to add anything, but.
I think my comments, council, is reflective of the director's report, obviously support of where the director is going and advice to council. I take questions on my comments, but I don't need to add anything further.
Okay, does anybody have any questions? If not, I'll just have a motion, please, to accept the report as information.
Can I ask a question first?
Of course.
Just around that, if we accept it as information, it will come back to council next week for a vote. And I'll make that motion then to accept the report for information.
Councillor Wing, did you have another question?
I do. Well, just a comment, well, a question. Is it possible, or have we any indication of positive results of collaborative economic development activities in other places? So, I think back to the different conversations we've had over time, and I get it. I understand, like, if you're all working together and at the end of the day there's success, but one community is perceived as coming out ahead or whatever. But I mean, does this model seem to be working? Is there evidence of this kind of model of collaborative economic regional development? Are there examples of it working, Director Vickers? Jenkins?
I guess in terms of ones that are specifically organized this way, I can look into that and talk with the group. I just find, I know every ECDev strategy or report, it seems the number one, and it doesn't even matter if it's ECDev, let's talk community safety and well-being, let's talk anything, it's collaborate regionally with your partners and, try to understand those perspectives. And again, I think that just that ticket to the table to be a part of those conversations has value for the amount that we're talking.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't spend a bunch of time on looking for things, but I just wonder if this is, is this a model of something new, or is this something that's being done? I mean, I've certainly been in site selection meetings where you're looking around the table thinking, well, I wonder why they're here and not them, or, whatever. And then I just think about the gap. I think about going down the QE2 corridor. So you've got the city of Red Deer, the county of Red Deer Polytechnic, and nothing then until Olds. And I just feel like there's a whole lot of opportunity sitting in that area that I think Innisfail is just well positioned to be a part of. So yeah, I hope we can consider this more for next week. Thank you.
And this model was down in Medicine Hat, so this exact model. Councillor Heistad?
I should have just, sorry, Mayor Barclay, I was going to ask Director Jenkins, just which budget are we bringing this out of, ECDEV or?
Yeah, so this would be our general ECDEV, and we do have room in our current 2025 ECDEV budget, sort of as a contracted services line is what we would be looking at, and then we would identify it as a specific line item for future years.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
Yeah, just a comment mostly, and I can repeat it again next week if we're actually having a motion, but economic development has always been a bit elusive to me, but I realize throughout the past term we've invested very heavily, and so I'm inclined to, after thinking about it for a week, to revert a little bit to Councillor Dunham's last week's comment of supporting administration. The financial is really quite small relative to what we've already been committing. And the one thought I'd leave is I would ask that it be examined going forward frequently so that it doesn't become an initiative that just concentrates on perpetuating itself, that it look for results. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, so we have a motion to accept the report as information. All in favor? All right, carried.
Okay, so pretty short update this week. Most of, I think all of council, perhaps maybe Jason wasn't at registration night, but sorry, Councillor Heistad. So we had our second of the 3 public information sessions last Tuesday at registration night. All in all, it was very positive and constructive conversation with the folks coming through for registration night. Our final session is scheduled for this Wednesday, September 17th from 4 to 7 at the LLC. Work at the facility continues on. We continue to be on schedule. Roof replacement commenced last week, so they stripped it back down to the original steel, and there's new roof material going on. The window replacement on the south side is complete. They're currently cutting the hole in the east wall for the additional emergency exit. The bulk of the electrical and mechanical equipment has been removed from site, and exterior removal should start this week. We are looking to propose, I'm going to assume council is interested, to do a facility walkthrough the week of October 14th to 17th. Council has been a big part of this project, and we have a couple that may not or won't be returning, and we'd like you guys the opportunity to see the fruits of your labor. So we'll work with Juanita to determine which dates work best in that window for council.
Thank you, Director Jenkins. Is it possible to have some photos taken during construction that can be shared with the public?
We can look at that. We get updates from the contractor. They're a little bit touchy about us just showing them just based on condition of site, things like that, but we can talk to them about.
But I think that's what would be so
specific.
interesting to see is, I mean, how extensive this is, and yeah.
Yeah, we can chat with the contractor to determine an appropriate time or how they want to do that.
Personally, I'd like to see it done on a regular basis where people are updated as the project progresses, and if possible. Any questions about any of this? No? Could we please have a motion then to accept the report as information? Councillor Dunham, Councillor Bates, sorry. Saw you.
I'll move that we accept the report as information.
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. Okay, thanks, Director Jenkins. We'll move into correspondence and information. Just have the... What's that?
So those two additions
Oh,
to the
right, I
agenda?
forgot
Yeah.
about that. See, now I forgot about him. First it was you and now me. Sorry, Councillor Heistad. So we have 2 items.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Barclay. And I think I've brought this up before, not in, maybe in some of the items. The first one was, I think it was e-bikes and stuff. I've had, in my time just walking early in the morning or just observing in the community, there's a lot more e-bikes and scooters, and I guess this one would be to Director Leith, just on that. I know I've had one complaint where I actually asked the individual to report it to bylaw, and then they were actually asked to call into the RCMP because it's under the Transportation Safety Act, e-bikes and some of the uses of an e-bike or scooter. And the only reason why I'm bringing this up now is I foresee this as becoming more of an issue, not only for this council, but future councils. So I'm just putting this on the radar, is that, 5:30 in the morning, I'm out walking, and there's more than 1 or 2 of these guys that ride around town with no lights on, no bells, no helmets, and just really unsafe. And so how I look at this is maybe it falls under the Transportation Safety Act within the province, but I'm seeing this as something that I would like to see on the radar, not necessarily now, we're 5 weeks away from an election, but in the future, council. That's why I'm bringing it forward. I've seen e-bikes that look like motocrosses that are being, wheelies down the middle of the road, and just there's an opportunity to provide better safety for not only for those individuals, which is good if they're wearing a helmet, but people that may be on the sidewalk or on, crossing streets and not getting hit. That's number 1. And then number 2 would be Highway 54, that 70 kilometers zone, Mayor Barclay to Director Leith. I see that 70K, and I've seen it a number of times this summer. And the only reason why I'm bringing it up now, I was sitting at, full disclosure, Field and Forge, and just seeing cars ripping through. And I've seen in the last 2 months our peace officers doing a really good job monitoring that and pulling people over. But I think we should be careful with the Southwest development is going to be an issue for us in the next couple of years. And how do we deal with that through the Transportation Safety Act and mitigate that risk sooner than later, especially with the new council? So those are my comments. If anybody else or Director Leith would like to comment, that's great. I'm not going to debate this to death. I just wanted it for the record today. Thank you.
Your Worship, through to Councillor Heistad, it's something that is 100% on our radar as well. Certainly the e-scooter pieces, they are prohibited vehicles. They shouldn't be ridden on sidewalks or roadways or our public footpaths. Unfortunately, certain municipalities who've created bylaws and shared scooter, which is the rental companies that come in, obviously open the doors for people to go and purchase their own and then turn around and have double standards. Those shared, or the companies that come in, obviously have insurance and have set speed limits and GPS locations so they know where they are. So there's rules that sit with those. Unfortunately, the privately owned ones, there are no rules, and people can go and buy them off Amazon or eBay, etc. We have had several conversations, or the peace officers have had conversations with individuals operating them, explaining to them that they shouldn't be, and these are the potential consequences. Also in conversation with RCMP, our detachment commander currently was with the City of Red Deer on traffic, and he said the same. The unfortunate piece, once the municipality opens up that through bylaw, the fact that they can be used on a shared operation, it creates enforcement challenges for sure. The same with e-bikes is if they still have a pedal on them, this classed as a bicycle and therefore conform to the same Traffic Safety Act requirements of a bicycle. So it's certainly something we're looking at in respect of the e-bikes and e-scooters on which way to turn around and provide ultimately the safety of the community. The Highway 54 piece, and I'm sure Council, everybody is aware that 70 kilometre an hour transition zone. Currently, we are seeing significant speeds on there. Some of the highest speeds in the region of 150 kilometres an hour. Enforcement is being taken there. Our traffic count for the month of August was just on 53,000 vehicles for the traffic count in that area. We are going to open conversation with Alberta Transport, it's their highway, on what they would propose in respect of engineering controls, because enforcement, unfortunately, doesn't solve the problem. We're seeing continually speeds. Average speed of there is 20 kilometres over the posted speed limit, and that's the 85% of the vehicles going through there are doing more than 20 than the posted speed limit, with some excessive speeds. So it's something that's certainly in our high on our priorities right now. So we will likely come back to council and provide, if that's the desire, information on how we're going to move forward with that.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship, and thanks to Director Leith for the update on that. I appreciate that. I think there's an opportunity to work with, Minister Dreeshen and Transportation on those issues. I guess the big thing for me is, I think whoever's on the new council, it should be on the radar, especially with that development. To me, it's frightening, especially when we have that really nice pedestrian crosswalk, which, if you got people going 150K, that's just insanity. So, no, I really appreciate it. I know that the e-bike one is it's a tough one, right? But I hope the guy that drives every day, 5:55 a.m., he's going down to the industrial park. I hope he doesn't get spotted one day. But thanks for your time, everybody.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
Just a couple of comments. With the Highway 54, I really appreciated hearing from Director Leith the average. That guy that's going 150, you're going to get one of those somewhere, but that the average is way up, that's concerning. One of the things, I use that regularly because I head south quite often. One of the things I find when I use it, if I'm not paying attention, I'm one of those guys that's a little bit over. I find the warning sign that says 70 ahead and then bang, you're in 70. I have to get on the brakes to actually, because they need more spread. And I compare to the signs as you enter and leave or come back through Penhold. The signs give you lots of warning that 80 ahead and then 50 ahead, and I don't have to use the brakes. If I just lift my foot off the gas, I get down to the speeds. So I do believe we should look at that, because something as simple as a signpost in a better place might help. And it's only going to help with that small percentage of people that are actually reading the sign, maybe, but just a comment. I tell you, I found another spot, and that's coming in on the 2A, and it's the same. When you come in on the 2A into Innisfail, the warning of 70 ahead and 70, you have to use your brakes. And I truly think it would be somewhat more useful if you didn't. Yeah, the bikes, again, it's the people that are operating them wrongly, and I do think we should keep that differentiation between the bikes and scooters. And definitely the scooters do provide the opportunity for a limitless low-age person. It just seems like I see the odd very young person around town using those, and those scare me a little bit. I'd be curious to know if we've ever had an actual impact type accident. And I would assume that we've got some people riding bicycles that are just about as bad as the e-bikes, but I guess I'm curious if we've actually had somebody hitting somebody else and it's been reported. Have we had that?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Bates, I'm unaware of any incidents in town recently anyway, certainly from a fire or EMS side of it. Certainly no other municipalities, certainly with the shared schemes for the scooters, have significant number of increased incidents in respect to their use.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm curious, Director Leith, like working with Alberta Transportation, it sounds like you have lots of data so far. So how are we going to take that next step about addressing some of the concerns? Or who is going to take that next step, I guess?
So that's with me currently,
Okay.
Your Worship. I'm going to make those inquiries, including Director Kennedy, on what that is likely to look like. Certainly the engineer controls increased signage, size of signage, illuminated signage, all those pieces to turn around and try to give vehicle operators the best opportunity to see what they should be doing in those zones is my
Traffic
current
circle.
thought
Traffic
process,
circle.
and I think I can speak for Director Kennedy in the same way. So.
Traffic circle. That'll be next. Since we're talking about problem areas, I'm also curious, and you don't have to answer today, Director Leith, maybe can bring that back something to us, but the area of town where I live, I go out for a walk in the evening or something, and like 52nd Avenue, the racetrack south of the Mac store, kind of through that area, and then the corner of 42nd and 42nd Street and 52nd Avenue, like it's school time, and it's not that people are speeding, it's just that congestion. So I'm curious, like, does your team monitor that area? And, there's traffic off shift coming out of the industrial park, there's kids walking across crosswalks, there's traffic turning left, and it's so congested, and I'm concerned at some point that somebody's going to hit a child or something in the crosswalk. So do we monitor those areas, or do you need people to send complaints in, or?
Your Worship, yeah, daily is basically how, when we have officers on, those school zones patrol daily at the times of entry and exit of the school. That corner is problematic, with parents stacking up as early as 2 o'clock in the afternoon to turn around and pick children up. So it does become a problem, but certainly we're in that area, both physically in patrol vehicles and on foot as well, to monitor that.
So does it ever get to a point, and maybe Director Kennedy, this is a question to you, do you ever take a look at an intersection like that and look into maybe putting a turning arrow in, like a green arrow to left turn or something, or how does that happen, or even get to that point where we look into it?
I remember, it comes up to as needed basis. So if it becomes a problem area, based on some stats that obviously Gary would have, we would then look at options very similar to 42nd Street and 48th Ave that we did, the two-way stop. Did an evaluation, did an analysis, came up with some ideas. So obviously, yeah, as concerns arise, we would then look at it on that kind of basis.
Okay, so we'll leave it with Director Leith to see Councillor Heistad.
Thanks, Your Worship. The only comment, my last comment to, maybe it's to Director Leith and Councillor Bates as to the e-scooters and stuff like that. I think the data or information would be helpful through HS and injuries in our ERs if you can get that information. I think that's helpful. I have anecdotal information on stuff that does happen in larger centers because of people I know. But I just think, I guess my last comment about the scooters or e-bikes, and I'm not picking on Gavin because he has a e-bike, he wears a helmet. There's a lot of young people that aren't wearing helmets and they're not being safe, and maybe there's some type of program or we're working with the schools on stuff like that. But that's it. I appreciate the subject being brought up today. Thank you.
Councillor Wing, then
Thank you.
Councillor Bates.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. And just a comment relative to Highway 54 and 42nd, as we're speaking to whatever department we need to speak to. We have quite knowingly increase the density in that area. So, you know, both residential, commercial, industrial, and that's only going to increase as housing, you know, as that industrial park fills up and as Napoleon fills up with houses. We're creating a really big problem. So I think it's imperative that they understand that we need that stretch of road addressed before, as Mayor Barclay said, even closer to the schools, but we have a residential area on the other side of that highway, as you know. So yeah, I think it's important, and I hope that the next council can really push this forward with you as well. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bates.
Yeah, and I came up with the last comment related to 54 as well. If we do have the ear of somebody that's dealing with the signs, it might also help if, I think the sign where you speed back up is so far away in both directions that maybe some people, we're all impatient. Maybe some people want to cruise through there just a little bit quicker. And I do believe there's no reason to have the speed up sign so far away from the intersection. So that would, if we have the ear of somebody, have them look at that as well. And I'm not a sign expert, but I'd like to hear about that as well. Thank you.
Okay, so guess is there any direction for administration? Or not today? No? Okay, so just some conversation. Thank you so much for that. So we'll move into our correspondence and information. The only thing we have are the RCMP crime stats, which look very favorable. Good to see those decreases in many areas. I will just have somebody please accept this report as information. Councillor Dunham.
Barclay will make that motion.
Okay,
Accept
thanks.
its information.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about this report? No? Yeah, all in favor then? Okay, thank you. So we'll move into roundtable and we'll begin with Councillor Heistad today.
Yeah, no, I heard that last week's registration night went really well for all of us, and that was great. I was away at a training seminar for myself on a personal matter, but yeah, it's nice to be back. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wing.
I don't have anything to report for this week specifically, but just a comment on the registration night. I thought it did go really well, and there was no fire, but there was a major message from heaven saying saying something. So anyways, it was well attended, and I thought it was well received. And the Harvest Festival on the weekend was just outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I will also comment on Reg Night, as it was great to see so many people out, and it was wonderful to hear some positive comments and to get some feedback from some new people to town and just on their view of the community and our current council and administration. And I think sometimes that the negative voices can definitely outweigh the positive ones, so it's nice when people actually go out of their way to bring good news to you. I will be attending the second candidate information session here tomorrow night, as well as the Aquatic Center Info Open House on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bates.
Not to be left out on Reg Night. No, it was good. One of the things that I did want to mention, I think I was the only one that heard it, a senior couple came through, and one of the things they said to me is they'd done a lot of checking around, and before they moved here about 8 months ago, they were told that this was one of the best run towns in the area. So I think that's worth noting. I'll do a report like we're supposed to for next week. I did send a couple of Mountain View information things through email to CAO Becker and Council. They've established emergency plans, and they just wanted everybody to be aware of them. And kind of a preliminary 10-year capital forecast. This week I'll be at a quick MPC, I believe, the candidate info, and the Aquatic Center.
All right, thank you. Yeah, registration night was very positive, so thanks to administration for setting everything up, and it was, like, as Councillor Bates said, it's so nice to hear, and Councillor Dunham, like people that have moved to the community. I think I met maybe 4 couples that night that had moved here in the last couple of years at various times, and they absolutely love it here. And, you know, one had grown up here and moved back recently after 32 years in Calgary, and then some others who chose Innisfail after doing a Central Alberta look around, and they landed here. So very, very positive. I felt the Aquatic Centre, people were having very respectful conversations, and I did not hear one negative comment about the Aquatic Centre that evening anyway. So then attended the Harvest Festival, and as well as the Terry Fox Run on Sunday, and we'll be at the Aquatic Centre Information Night again this week, so looking forward to that. So we'll just go to upcoming events, please, Juanita.
Mayor Barclay, if I could
Yeah,
just
for sure.
have, RDR Mug is meeting this Thursday in Drumheller, so I'll be heading down to Drumheller on Thursday morning.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll just have a motion, please, to accept the upcoming events as information. Councillor Wing.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Carried. And then we'll have a motion to go in camera, please. Councillor Bates.
I'll move that we go in camera.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thanks.